Good evening, everybody. I'd like to call this meeting to order. Madam Clerk, have we met all the noticing requirements for this meeting?
Yes, Mayor.
And I would like to welcome everybody to the council meeting of September 11th, 2017. Please call the roll.
Ms. Howard? Here. Mr. Liverman? Here. Mr. Miller? Here. Ms. Cremiller is absent. Ms. Butler?
Here.
Mr. Quinn?
Here.
Mayor Lampert?
Here. To start tonight's meeting, I'd like us to pause for a moment of silence. As we all know, it's September 11th today, the 16th anniversary, and our country has just faced two major hurricane events. So both in memory of those who lost their lives on September 11th, the first responders, and everybody who's been victimized by Hurricane Harvey and Hurricane Irma. And now please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, we will start with announcements, and I'll start on my left this evening. Shake things up. Mr. Quinn, any announcements tonight?
Not tonight, Mayor.
Ms. Butler? Nope. Mr. Miller? Any announcements? No. I don't have any announcements either. Are there any announcements there? The only announcement is that we had been holding a third night for council meeting every month, and we're not going to be using the one for next week. So that might have been listed as a possibility up on the calendar, but the next council meeting will be on September 25th. All right, we can move on to approval of the minutes. We have 5 sets of meeting minutes. Are there any comments or corrections on any of the minutes?
Somebody, does she need one of us to make that?
It was already done, corrected.
Well,
Anything else? All right, is there a motion to approve? Moved by
Second.
Mr. Miller and seconded by
Are you-
Mr. Liverman.
are you approving them in block?
In block.
Well, I think there were some absences. I was absent on May 8th, I think.
I missed July 10th.
Okay, well then let's take them one at a time. Is that a motion for the April 24th minutes?
Yes.
Okay. All in favor of the April 24th minutes?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, those passed unanimously. Next, we'll take up, I recommend the 2 minutes from May 8th, the closed session, and also the regular meeting minutes of May 8th. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Quinn. Is there a second? Seconded by Mr. Miller. All in favor?
Bernie, you and I were absent May 8th. So I don't think you can
I guess I can.
All right,
second.
is there,
We need a second. Yeah.
is there a second from Ms. Howard or Mr. Liverman? Second. Seconded by Ms. Howard. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Can it, 3 votes enough to approve?
Yes.
Majority of present.
Okay.
So Bernie
Yes.
and I are
Okay.
absent.
And then next, the minutes from July 10th. Is there a motion to approve?
So
Moved by Mr. Miller
Second.
and seconded by Mr. Liverman. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Those minutes pass. And next, we come to August 7th, 2017.
I abstain.
Is there a motion to approve?
August 7th. Set.
It's moved by Mr. Miller.
Second.
And seconded by Mr. Liverman. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, those minutes pass also. And now we come to a really wonderful part of the agenda, which is the award of recognition that Council has been giving out about once a month, and we've been moving it around the dais, and it's Mr. Quinn's turn tonight to give out the award. I don't think we've ever had the paparazzi come like it is tonight, so I think it goes to show the illustriousness of the chosen recipients. So I'd like to turn it over to Mr. Quinn.
Thank you, Mayor. Tonight, I've asked the administrators of the I Grew Up in Princeton Facebook group to accept this award of recognition on behalf of the 2,920 members of the group. Since its founding more than 9 years ago by the son of one of the current administrators, I Grew Up in Princeton has become something of a living history project of the Princeton diaspora. Members of the group who live in town and those who now live around the world share memories and keep up with the news of their hometown. The group welcomes those of us who were not fortunate enough to grow up in Princeton, and its members are happy to answer questions. So if you want to know what happened on Jefferson Road when President Johnson came to town for the dedication of the Woodrow Wilson School, or what it was like to ride in a school bus down the 12% grade and over the now closed Province Line Road Bridge, or where the Saturn Boutique, Bellows, or the English Shop were located downtown, someone in the group will know. More than just a history site, I Grew Up in Princeton is a place where members share news of present-day Princeton for out-of-town members. What's clear in both the shared memories and the comments on contemporary news is the great affection many who grew up here have for our town. Administrators Marjorie Morse-Bell, Michael Lemonick, and Francesca Ferrenti-Segalis. I know that Marjorie and Michael are graduates of Princeton High School, and I'm not sure about Francesca and Francesca is a graduate of Stewart, will accept the award, and I welcome them to say a few words about the group. And would any of the members who are in attendance please stand if you're a member of the I Grew Up in Princeton group? Mr. Stentz, I think you're a member.
Yeah. I think I am.
Thank you so much. A real pleasure.
So, I don't have much to say except thank you and
Join our group.
yes, join our group. And it's an honor to represent the group, which is a big part of my life now. And being administrators, I think you'll agree, means, and we don't run the group, we're not in charge of it, we simply help keep it going and keep it civil, and it's just a true pleasure. And
Let it run on its own.
Let it run on its own.
It's just great.
And I have reconnected with many, many friends from my past as a result, and relatives of friends, so it's just great fun.
Yeah. Thank you for recognizing us. It's really appreciated.
And I just want to say on behalf of my son, who started the group in 2008 when he was a freshman at Princeton High School, I don't think that he ever imagined that it would ever become what it has become, and almost 3,000 members of all ages that span back to, I know, people, graduates from the 50s, 40s, I think even are in our group, and current high school students as well. So it's just been a really fun time.
And the movie that Brad
Yes.
Right, so
And
this
yeah.
shirt is actually a representative of the movie that Brad Mays, over here with the camera, shot, also titled I Grew Up in Princeton. So you should check that out if you have a chance. Okay.
Thank you.
Also, I should just say that I don't think Colin also realized that so many old people would come in and take over the group.
When he left. He started when
he left.
he asked me to invite my friends. I grew up here, and that's where it all started. Yeah.
So thank you again.
Thanks very much.
I imagine you'll be getting. I imagine you'll be getting more requests to join the group, and thank you very much.
Now we're going to move on to comments from the public for items that are not already on the agenda. And we'll start with the folks who signed the sheet at the beginning of the meeting, and then we'll open it up to anybody else. So we'll start with Paul Driscoll. And I would like to just remind everybody who's commenting to please try to keep your comments to 3 minutes, because we have a full agenda tonight. And
It's just one page
okay,
here.
excellent. Thank you.
Paul Driscoll, is that better? Wait, back up. Okay. Paul Driscoll, Harris Road. As citizens, some of us have learned from articles in local newspapers that a 76-unit senior living community has been proposed at a site near the shopping center at the corner of Harrison Street and Terhune Road. We welcome the application for a much-needed community for seniors in our town. It would also be reassuring for us to know that future residents will be safe in a complex which is built to the highest possible fire safety standards. Assuming the application is accepted, we would like to suggest that it would be prudent for council to request the developer to build the units to incorporate masonry firewalls through the roof. Equally important, they should also include an upgraded sprinkler system which complies with NFPA 13 standards, requiring that sprinklers be installed in concealed combustible spaces. This is not required under NFPA 13R, the current acceptable standard for residential complexes. We know that recently some New Jersey developers have voluntarily agreed to meet similar upgraded safety measures for some of their projects. The proposal for this complex is for elderly residents who may be spending their last years and months of their lives at this location. They may be disabled or less mobile and therefore should be living in an environment which is completely safe for them. Residents of this community who may have family members and friends living at this facility would also like to know that the complex is built to the highest fire safety standards possible. This brings us back to another side of the same issue, which is the need to implement a local 24/7 fire safety ordinance, as I discussed at the last council meeting. All these large residential projects are built of lightweight wood, and the construction sites have been referred to by firefighters as vertical lumber yards. A local 24/7 fire safety ordinance is the best way to control any possible outbreak of massive fires, especially in view of the many multifamily structures which are slated to be built in Princeton. We should not forget that the construction fire which occurred at the Avalon Edgewater site in 2000 spread to and destroyed 9 nearby homes, and this can happen anywhere. Thank you for your consideration, and I'm actually representing about 5 other people who couldn't be here tonight that are also very concerned about this issue. Thank you.
Thank you. Alexi Asmus.
Alexi Asmus, Maple Street, and I'd like to support the municipality working on an ordinance for a fire watch, and I'll tell you why. I know it's maybe a heavy lift, but there is work going on in the state and national level. It's difficult. We're pushing against very strong building lobbies. We're pushing against a very slow process at the national level, with changes now not even possible until 2021. And I believe that if there's movement at a municipal level, there will be synergy at all those other levels. I brought you some documents to maybe give you some courage if you decide you want to take this up. The massive fire list, which I update regularly. Since the Maplewood fire, there have been 7 other construction conflagrations, all that size or larger, 3 in Oakland, 1 in Waltham, where Waltham is discussing changes to the municipal ordinances as well as changes to the state ordinance. There was a huge construction fire in downtown Raleigh where 10 surrounding high-rise buildings were damaged. Police asked residents to stay out of the downtown because of smoky conditions. There was another huge fire in Kansas City where embers spread for a square mile and destroyed 22 surrounding homes. So it's really a significant problem. The town cannot legislate the building or construction code, but the town does have a right to legislate construction fire safety and a 24/7 fire watch. And what I've given you the massive fire list that's updated in your packet, and then I have given you some the state bill, and I marked in yellow the portion that's the 24/7 fire watch. We're trying to get that passed. I don't know if we're going to be successful. That was written by a national fire code expert, Bob Davidson, and he's known to the staff here. I'm sure he would be very willing to vet and look over any ordinance we came up with. I also have included there pieces from the National Model Code. You'll see what's being worked on in terms of a fire watch. Again, this is something the municipality can do. They can't limit the size of these buildings. They can't do everything, but they could do this. And I think it's a good idea. I know it's being debated among you. I know we have a lot on our agenda. I know it may be expensive, but I do think the citizens could come up with a very, very good draft municipal ordinance, and I would certainly engage some National Fire Code experts to work with your team and your attorney.
Thank you. I just wanted to respond to these two comments before we hear from more folks. Or did you want to speak to this, Nat? First of all, I want to thank you for all of this research on the building codes. And Council passed a resolution, I'm trying to remember, I think it was either this year or the year before, supporting changes to the construction code. And I know your group is really active with the Avalon Bay construction, and we felt very strongly here that making sure that that development was going to be safe, and we welcome working together with you, especially with changes at the state law. We've talked to our local officials, and they feel that what we have on our books right now allows them what they need in terms of the powers that they're granted that aren't at the state level, what they need to keep the construction site safe. But I want to ask Mr. DeShield if he had anything to add to that. We heard what you said at the last meeting, and we did have this conversation. So, Mark, did you want to comment?
Thank you, Mayor. And after the last meeting, I did have a chance to meet both with the fire official and the construction code official concerning those regulations. And they've reviewed them again and still come to the same conclusion that based on the permitting processes that are in place, they feel as though they could really handle any event that they have with the current regulations they have. And what they suggest is, and again, what we passed in that resolution, would be changes at the state level on the code itself.
Okay, thank you. Is there anybody else on council who wants to comment on this? Okay, I'd like to call up Lishian Lisa Wu.
Yes. Before I started, I'd like to know why I'm not able to get the copy of a minute since May 8th. It's already September. This list compiled by Gary, the Community Service Director, Friday, for me. So it's already September 11. I don't understand why it takes forever for you to approve, to release the copy since May 8th, okay? Let me start it. First, fire alarm. By the way, I don't think I can finish in 3 minutes. First of all, fire alarm in my building. I live in the senior housing, M Court, 300 M Road. I have a copy of a law from police department, also fire department, shows unreasonable false alarm. And I think that is waste of public resource, because every time false fire alarm occur, this is a fire truck and police present. Secondly, I still not heard from a member regarding August 7th that I have been stated the federal nutrition lunch program should bring back to Princeton. And I have been busing to Lawrenceville Senior Center, and as I said before, I feel like I'm 1960, the college students been busing in and out of their district to attend the school. I don't think it's fair for the senior, especially this is the OAA, Older American Act, passed by the Congress 1965. I also want to challenge, I think is Heather, last time you mentioned that it's not an entitlement. Did you make that remark? Entitlement?
But why don't we have your comments, and then we'll bring it back to council if there's any
No,
responses.
because I just checked the video myself, and I found that very appalling. Okay?
I have to clarify, I mentioned that our current president has cut funding, is proposing to cut funding for the program. It was not a comment on how I view the program, it was how the federal government and the federal budget views the program.
That's not true, because I talked to the Human Service Director, Mary Grace, in Trenton office. She said that the county has the money. She pointed a finger at the Princeton Township. You are not cooperate. They cannot find a site. They have the money ready to rent. It's nothing to do with the budget. If you don't believe it, you can verify yourself. I had a conversation with her August. And actually, I want to add one more because I'm very upset to find out that Princeton Senior Center the budget only funded 20% from Princeton Township. And I've been checking around this area. Lawrenceville Senior Center, it's 100% funded by their town. And that's why I talked to Susan, the director of the Senior Center. They've been having problem that they have to go out to raise the money for Senior Center. And then I found that we, as a senior living in Princeton, as a second-class citizen, I don't understand why we only deserve 20% of a budget. Our budget from the city. I want to see your next year's budget. I want to see how many goes to allocated to Princeton Senior Center. Can I get that report? Is that possible? That's my last question. The
Yes,
budget.
well, we don't have the 2018 budget yet because we haven't developed it, but everything will be online and we'll be discussing it at the meetings. But you can definitely go online and find the 2017 budget, 2016, 2015, back
Excuse
several
me?
years.
I am not a well-off senior. I'm not rich. I don't have a computer, especially I don't have a printer. So I was wondering, if you don't have a future budget, how about the past budget? I want to make a comparison to make my argument.
I believe there are copies at the library when we have the public hearing. Are they still held there? Do you know? Does the library still? Or at the clerk's office, which is down the hall during business hours, you can pick up a copy.
I know, but the thing is, I have to pay for it because just like I had to pay $4.20 for the alarm, fire alarm that I got it from the public record. I paid $4.20 for 84 pages, 5 cents per page. I think that it's a burden to me. Is there any way I can get a copy of it? the budget for free?
I think so. At the very least, there's copies that you can look at here in the building. But Mr. DeShield, you were nodding your head.
If you come to the clerk's office, I can get you a copy of the budget.
Tomorrow morning, 9:30, would that be ready?
It will be ready.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very
I'd
much.
like to know when would I get the answer back? Because I spoke at the August 7th. I have not heard from,
Well, I'd like to respond to you, but there's other folks too, so I'll respond to you, but we can't have the back and forth because it's not fair to everybody else. So I can tell you that in terms of the senior nutrition program, that there's been the program that Princeton residents are going and using the Lawrence facilities.
I feel appalling. No, I feel appalling. Every day I have to be bused.
Right, I
I
understand that.
refuse that, okay? I told you before, if you do not bring back the lunch program, I will take action. I have to go to state district attorney. This is not right. This is passed by the Congress 52 years ago. Princeton had a program for 30 years, from 1975 to 2015, and you scrapped it because contract was up, and then the church was told it's unsafe. So you just did not find a new location. That's it. For 2 years. That is no excuse. You had a program before for 40 years. Why change your mind? Why is 2 years you refuse to bring it back?
Right, and I know you've had discussions with this with Sue Hoskins at the Senior Resource Center.
No,
And-
I have a conversation with the county. No,
Okay.
county official.
Okay. I feel like this conversation, I'd like to have it with you, but I think I'd like to be able to respect everybody else in the room. And
Can I have a appointment with you?
Sure.
With your assistant?
sure, if you
Thank
leave your contact information, and I'll get in touch with you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, you're welcome. Nat, did you want to speak too?
So my name is Nat Bodegheimer from White Pine Lane in Princeton. I wanted to briefly repeat the support that I expressed in a Town Topics letter for the senior center that's been proposed for the property adjacent to the Harrison Street Shopping Center. But most of the comment that I wanted to make this evening was just about the parking study that's ongoing. I wanted to say how much I'm looking forward to the draft strategies meeting that has not been scheduled yet, as far as I know, but is in the offing sometime in the fall. I'm looking forward to that. And in anticipation of that, and also anticipating that the strategies that are going to be put forward by the consultant may involve trade-offs that are difficult for the community to digest. I just wanted to take off the table one of the concerns that could come up in any subsequent conversations, which is the quality of the consulting work. And I just wanted to pay my respects to the consulting firm that is doing the work for you, Nelson Nygaard. As a professional planner, there are people that I compete with. There are also people that I collaborate with. And you have hired one of the best consulting firms in the country for this particular kind of study. They're really experts at balancing the technical needs of access, of thriving economic centers, of placemaking. That's really what makes them one of the unique consultants in the country, is their ability to balance placemaking and urban development with these technical kinds of considerations. So really, I just wanted to say that when you get whatever results you get, they're going to be telling you what the choices are that you face, what the trade-offs are that you're going to face. They've already done extremely good work with the inventorying of parking supply and parking demand in downtown and identifying the ways it's used. And I'm confident that the kinds of programs they're going to put before you to consider are going to be faultless, and it's going to present you all with some tough choices, but you will have had for you well-defined the decision-making space that you're operating in, and the solution you're going to find is not going to be somewhere else. It's going to be in what they tell you. So again, looking forward to the draft strategies report. Congratulations on hiring a great firm to support you, and look forward to that meeting when it comes up. Thanks.
Thank you, and hope you heal well.
Can we ask, Deanna, do we have a date now when we expect the parking
I
study
should
back?
have a date this week. We had a conference call last Friday with the consultant. He gave us some more information that they have put together on their analysis of our land use within the study area. And what I've asked for is that they provide us with the draft report and recommendations at least 2 weeks before a public meeting. We've been looking at October 4th as our public meeting date, and they are not sure if they can provide us with a draft document 2 weeks prior to that date, which would essentially be in the next week or two. So what we're looking at is potentially mid-October for the next public meeting date, and like I said, I should know that better this week. They're checking their schedules right now.
Great, thank you. Let's see, are there any other comments from the public for items that are not already on the agenda? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to our presentation for this evening, and I'd like to call up Mark Frieda from the Princeton First Aid and Rescue Squad.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for inviting the Princeton First Aid and Rescue Squad to be here tonight to give you an update on our building project for the new building, which is, the site here is at the former Township Public Works site, which, as many of you know, the then council a few years ago actually invited us, the squad, to move to that site. So we were very happy to get that invitation, and we have moved along quite well in getting there to make this happen. So the first slide
Excuse
here
me, Mr. Frieda, you're going to have to speak into the microphone a little closer. You're not being picked up by.
Sorry.
That's okay.
There you go.
All right, wonderful.
The first slide is a conceptual plan of what the building may look like. It should be similar to that. So we intend to have a very tasteful building, but one that is very cost effective, as in not costing a lot. So what is the Princeton First Aid and Rescue Squad? We're an independent nonprofit organization founded in 1939. We have about 100 career and volunteer members. We respond to almost 3,000 calls a year for emergency medical and rescue services. We work hand in hand with both the Princeton Police Department and the Princeton Fire Department. But as you all know, we are not a municipal agency. We're not part of the police department. We're not part of the fire department. We are a totally separate and independent nonprofit organization. We have an annual operating budget, the equivalent of $1.5 million. Part of that is services of our volunteer EMTs, so we do not have to have career people paid to cover the many hours of service the volunteer EMTs provide to the squad and to the community. We have a reimbursement program where we charge people's commercial insurance, Medicare, Medicaid for transportations to the hospital. And of course, we have many individual contributions. Many people in the community that unfortunately need our services are quite grateful that we actually show up and help them in their time of need. And for some people, it's a very difficult time. Some people have life-threatening situations that we're there to mediate and address. Other people, it's a little simpler, but if you could see the letters of thanks that we get, notes when people send in contributions, things like that, we have a large, grateful community for services we have provided to them. Our volunteer EMTs come from the Princeton community, from nearby communities. We have a number of students, high school students, whether they're from Princeton High or nearby high schools, start in the squad as cadets, move up through our ranks. We have students from the College of New Jersey, Rutgers, Princeton University, amongst other universities. It's not uncommon for Princeton residents, students that go to colleges out of town, when they're back during breaks in the summer, they ride with the squad. Likewise, students from other areas, when they're here during the school year, ride with the squad. Volunteers serve the community, develop leadership skills. Many students prepare for careers in science and medicine. And, I don't think we can stress enough that obviously we get the ambulance out the door, we provide emergency medical services, but we provide educational benefits to many young people. You come to the squad, there's hours and hours of training. It's rigorous training. You have to know it, because if you don't know it, you don't get to ride the ambulance. It's not like we say, oh, this is horseshoes, you're close enough, you get a point. That doesn't work that way. If you don't know what you're doing, thanks for your effort, but you're not going to be there. You're not going to be on that ambulance. But young people learn responsibility, they learn accountability. There's a lot of life lessons. It's quite rewarding, but it's also a learning experience to be there doing CPR on someone that would have died if you weren't there. So there's any number of things that we do, that our members do on numerous calls to help them progress in their life and help them with their future. And I guess we could talk a little bit about why do we need a new building? Well, our building was built in 1963. The existing building is very outdated, totally insufficient to meet the needs of the squad, and therefore cannot meet the needs of the community as far as emergency medical services are concerned. Ambulances back in 1963 were Cadillac ambulances. No, nobody's seen those for quite a long time unless you're watching an old movie on TV. But the ambulances are much larger. They carry a lot more equipment. We do a lot more out of an ambulance than they did in 1963. We have very little room for training. I know that many members of the council were able to take advantage of our offer to come and tour the building, so you can see how inadequate the building is. Everything is really stuck into that building. Every available corner and crevice is used for something. The new building will solve a lot of those problems. We don't have like segregated areas for decontamination of equipment after a call, which you'd need to decontaminate from blood and other body fluids. We don't have a separate area for oxygen storage, so that's a quasi-safety matter. So things like that would all be addressed in a new structure. Where will the building be? Just to make sure everybody knows where it is going to be. We're talking about the island that I guess the town is using quite a bit for parking at the moment, where the former Township Public Works garage used to be. We're talking about the section of Terhune Road between Route 206 and Mount Lucas Road. And then we're talking about the other island on the other side of that little piece of Terhune that's between Terhune and to Cherry Hill. So that's what this little slide shows you. This is a conceptual site plan that we had developed for our application to the Zoning Board of Adjustment, which we are putting in this week. But over the last week and a half or so, we've been working diligently behind the scenes with Deanna. In fact, we had a meeting with Mark and Deanna this morning. So in Deanna's presentation, which follows this one, you're actually going to see a different site plan as far as the parking area goes. When the town originally asked us to move here, they said the one condition was that the fueling station that's there now stay somewhere on site. So we've worked with the engineer to figure out a way to make it fit. So Deanna's presentation will show where that could fit. And the squad is happy to do its part to help the town with that endeavor. What does our new building feature? The one big thing is there'll actually be enough room in the bays to fit all our equipment. If you go by our present building, you'll see that we have a special services vehicle, a trailer with equipment for building collapse and trench rescue, our utility four-wheel drive vehicle. They all sit outside. They're not inside the building. Our boat is actually at Hook and Ladder Firehouse, so all of our equipment is not actually at our building. So it'll be, it's obviously advantageous to have everything in one place. The new building will allow us enough room to hold EMT courses, CPR classes, other health and safety instruction programs that would be open to the public. We would actually have adequate sleeping quarters for our overnight crews. those of you that were able to come to the building, our what we call our bunk rooms or sleeping rooms, whatever, are, I don't know, if you take a college dorm room, the smallest one you've ever seen, and I don't know, degrade that, and then maybe you have close to what we have available for people. The one room has all our utilities. We have underground utilities come into the building, and if it rains just right and just hard enough, the rain comes through the underground conduits into that room. A few times it's knocked out the power to the building, and we've had to relocate it elsewhere. We're pretty sure that we're going to build a new building so that doesn't happen. We would have adequate space to do training, conduct rescue drills, storage areas. You know, you move into a newer house, you make sure it has enough closets, so we need similar type things. We need storage areas for boards that you put people on possibly after a car accident, rescue tools, of course, bandages, splints, an oxygen bottle refilling station, or defibrillators, and any other number of emergency equipment. What's the building going to cost? We're estimating the cost to be about $7.8 million. The building will be funded through private donations, the sale of Princeton First Aid and Rescue Squad properties, two of which are residential properties that are now owned by the town, and the property that the squad house is on right now. We have received enough pledge commitments that we can start construction today. Obviously, we need to go to the Zoning Board of Adjustment first and get approvals and do things like that and actually do all our construction documents, but we have enough money on hand that we can start. So our schedule and our next steps, like I said, this week we'll be turning in our application to the Zoning Board of Adjustment. We would love to be in front of them in October. I think that's probably unrealistic, but we're going to push and hope that we can be in front of them in November. If we're able to get approval at the November Zoning Board meeting, it's very likely that we could break ground in April of 2018, next April, and then construction is, say, 12 to 14 months, so August of 2019, we could actually complete construction, and then the following month have the dedication of the new building, and we could all stand around, cut the ribbon, blow the siren, do whatever it is you do for a new EMS facility, and all be very happy. And there's a picture of the building. Deanna's presentation will talk more about traffic and off-site road improvements, things like that, but if you have questions about anything I just presented, happy to address those without touching on anything that Deanna's going to touch on.
So do you have any comments from Mark?
Well, are you going to talk about your fundraising efforts to raise money for the building at all?
Other than to say that we have sufficient money on hand to start construction, and we do. I mean, we're still in the quiet phase of raising money, and at some point we'll go into a public phase, but the fundraising efforts are coming along quite nicely.
But if anybody's watching at home and is interested in being a part of this great organization, they can go to your website.
They can go to our
contact
website.
you.
There's a donate tab. They can call the building. Anybody that wants to help in any way make this building happen, we will definitely call them back.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Good evening. So in addition to what PFARS is planning for the site, there are municipal improvements that are necessary. This slide shows the overall road improvement plan for the area. You'll note that Terhune Road between 206 and Mount Lucas Road is closed off. We would be looking at doing a slight realignment of the remaining portion of Terhune Road where it comes into Mount Lucas. Mount Lucas would be formally improved with 3 lanes throughout that stretch from Cherry Hill to Valley Road. Valley Road is set up so that it can accommodate 4 lanes of traffic. Part of that is predicated upon DOT approving a traffic signal at Valley Road and 206, a full traffic signal. So the current plan at this point is for New Jersey Department of Transportation to make improvements to the Cherry Hill Road traffic signal. And I can bring here's the slide that shows the improvements that they're proposing. At DOT's cost, no cost to the municipality, they are looking to change the signal timing at Cherry Hill Road. They would be looking at constructing 3 westbound lanes on Cherry Hill, which would provide for a dedicated left turn pocket, a straight, and a right. That lines up nicely if they change the lane configuration on the other side of the intersection as shown, which would allow dedicated left turns from Cherry Hill Road onto 206 prior to the green movements through the intersection for Cherry Hill. So all of these improvements that you see in this area have been promised to us from DOT. I'll go back at Valley Road. Valley Road is also another area where New Jersey Department of Transportation has proposed to provide improvements. At this time, they have only approved an emergency signal at the intersection of Valley Road and 206, which would only be activated by emergency vehicle preemption. So police, fire, EMS would all have the ability to turn the traffic signal on. Otherwise, it would remain as a free-flowing intersection. The engineering department back in 2014 started looking at the improvements that would be needed for PFARs to go into this area. And at that time, we had commissioned a traffic study to see what would be needed, knowing that Terhune Road would be closed. And at that point in time, our consultant came back and said that we do meet standards and warrants to put in a full traffic signal at Valley and 206. However, when we took that to Department of Transportation, they have a policy that you cannot install a traffic signal within half a mile of another traffic signal. Our distance is 600 feet. We know that this has been done in other places in the state. It's a preference for DOT. And so we have been lobbying DOT through various meetings to move ahead with a full traffic signal. And when I come back to you later this fall with our traffic signal agreements with DOT, that will be one of the things that I will write into our agreement, is that this is set up to be turned over into a full traffic signal at such time that we can prove to them that it warrants those improvements. We have the empirical data by all of the traffic studies. I think the next step will be bringing in more of the political side of it to show that to keep our municipal roadways functioning, that this is an imperative improvement to be done. So what you're seeing here on Valley Road then is set up so that on the westbound side we could have a left turn and a right turn at that full intersection, and then on the eastbound side we'd have a left turn and a straight through lane. So with the PFARS development, we will go ahead and widen the roadway to this 48-foot wide width, which you see is about 8 feet wider from where the curb existing is.
Wait, can I?
Yes.
Go back to, so are you going to be able to turn left onto 206 from Valley Road? No, right? Doesn't look like.
Not until a full traffic signal is put in place. With the emergency signal, you would only be able to take the right going northbound.
Okay.
So I've covered the two signalized intersections, and just to note, at this intersection as well as part of the Memorandum of Understanding, PFARS will be contributing money for the replacement of the traffic signal at Witherspoon, Mount Lucas, and Valley. That traffic signal will be upgraded so that it has the ability to coordinate with the other two traffic signals. As well, it will have updated pedestrian buttons with it.
Can you just remind me the way that the building will be situated? Where will the emergency vehicles leave?
They will be leaving onto Valley Road.
And so the way this is now, will they also be restricted to only go north if we don't get that traffic light, or can emergency vehicles do anything they want?
We would accommodate them in the improvements at the intersection of Valley Road, so they could take a left. Like I mentioned before, Witherspoon Street will be formalized, or Witherspoon Mount Lucas will be formalized into 3 lanes. Currently, it acts that way most of the time, unless you have a car that sits a little further from the center line than another. So you're seeing about a 2-foot shift of the curb line on the west side of the roadway. On the east side of the roadway, we would just be doing some alignment changes because you have a shifting of curbs on either side of Terhune. So we're evening that out and making it a gentler alignment through that area. So, and as mentioned at Terhune, we will be straightening out that intersection with Mount Lucas. Right now, it is a very challenging intersection for sight distance between the vegetation and just the alignment of the roadway. So we'll take this as our opportunity to make that improvement. So just to reiterate, traffic signal improvements, DOT will take care of the 2 signals on 206, and then PFARS is funding to replace the Valley, Witherspoon, Mount Lucas traffic signal. It will come through our capital program. We will just be reimbursed for the cost of that. And as Mark had indicated, as part of this project, it was required that we keep a fueling station in this part of town. This is very centrally located. Prior to me, I know Bob Kaiser and Bob Huff looked at quite a few municipal properties around town as to where we could relocate the fueling station, and there was no good candidate. So we're fortunate that we do have this ability to retain a space in this area. You'll see on the left side of the slide, that is the location of the existing fueling station. So it's on the south side of Terhune. We're looking to move it onto the north side of the Terhune section that will be vacated. And it will be a one-way traffic movement, but it's set up so it can fuel all of the school buses, the fire trucks, as well as our own municipal fleet. So this will also be a municipal project. It will come before the road project just because of timing. As you heard Mark say, he wants to be in construction, if everything goes well, by April. We need to keep that fueling station operational during this time, so we'll be looking to move the fueling station prior to their start of construction. We're fortunate that a lot of the equipment that we need, we're either going to reuse from our existing fueling station, and other pieces are state contract. So we'll be moving ahead with that. You'll see that early next year, if not at the end of this year. So overall, here's a summary of improvements. I'm not going to read through all of them, but the next steps that you'll see coming through to you on this project will be those traffic signal agreements with NJDOT. Those will require a resolution from council. The one piece of those traffic signals that we do need to fund is the emergency preemption hardware. Otherwise, all of the other improvements that I discussed, the 206 Valley Road emergency signal is funded by the state, as well as those improvements to the roadway on Cherry Hill Road. So the only cost to us on those are the preemption equipment. You'll also be seeing, or we will be processing permit applications with DOT. 1 to close off Terhune Road. The second application is to consolidate those 2 municipal lots into 1 lot. That was a requirement of DOT when we went for a pre-application meeting, is that that gets consolidated into 1 lot for their use. And then you'll start seeing our various construction contracts and our resolutions to use state contract to purchase equipment.
So are you ready for questions?
Yeah.
Yeah, Mr. Limmer?
Yeah. Deanna, thank you. Thank Mark, and thank you, Deanna, for a fine report. I know that DOT sometimes drags their feet on a lot of issues. Over these years, sitting here, I've seen it happen many times. Can we still move forward even if we don't have them totally on board? Like, can we still move forward on a lot of these issues, even if...
I'll say it with a tentative yes. I mean, we will be putting in our applications to DOT for the closure of Terhune Road and the lot consolidation, I think, as soon as the package goes to zoning board, or is it after it's heard by zoning board? On approval of zoning board. Typically, their approvals the state takes 6 to 9 months. But we'll be pushing that along for them. I think some of this may go back to PFARS and to Mark as to how comfortable they are to start working without some of the approvals in place. On our municipal approvals, we're fine to move ahead.
Okay.
Mr. Miller?
One thing that always gives me pause when I look at a project is when I see one part of the project that is not under control of the person who's going to be managing the project. And that's, in this case, it's a big chunk. It's the DOT work. And I'm wondering if there is any way to formalize the relationship with DOT to the extent that we get them on paper to commit to the schedule that we need to get this job done on time. Otherwise, as my colleague Lance just pointed out, DOT sometimes moves at pretty glacial speed and has been known to change their mind also. So I think I'd be much more comfortable with what's going on here if we can get this down on paper and get it signed off by us and by DOT and then hold them to it.
Thank you, Bernie. That's a great idea. I think we'll reach out to the commissioner's office and we'll set up a meeting to confirm these details and to go through. It's been, I think, a year since we've met with the commissioner's office on this project, so it would be good to remind them of their conversations and their commitments to us.
Ms. Howard?
I mean, on that point too, I mean, there's going to be obviously a change in administration, and so we may want to get this on the agenda for the transition team so that this is something that happens quickly. You know, if it's not controversial, one would hope that those kind of decisions can get made by a new administration, but you know, I think the key would be to make sure it's on the transition team's radar screen. A question, Deanna, for you is that when you're talking about the changes that would be made as a result of this at the intersection where Mount Lucas comes in and Cherry, is it your sense, I mean, we're doing it to accommodate this, but it's going to make that intersection better, isn't it? I mean, I'm just, in terms of what the public, how the impact on the public. I remember when we went through this, people were skeptical. I was skeptical of what was going to happen where Harrison hit Route 1 and they added made it 2 lanes, a dedicated left turn lane. How big a difference? It was dramatic, the difference that made. So I'm hopeful, but I mean, I think for the public's, those changes, the hope would be that you smart transportation planners, that's really going to improve that intersection for everybody, right? in addition to facilitating this important project.
Yes, definitely. DOT is confident that just by making changes at the Cherry Hill 206 intersection, that will improve things. Our position is, yes, it will, but we want to see a greater improvement, which would come when you make the Valley Road signal a full signal.
I have another question. Could you put the slide up with the Cherry Hill intersection again? So the other slide showed where the crosswalks were going to be, and I know there's some crosswalks there now. No, we're the Cherry Hill intersection, though. So what's happening with pedestrian movement?
Pedestrian movement would stay as it is. When we had completed the design of Mount Lucas, we made the decision, because the Mount Lucas Cherry Hill intersection is wide and complicated with vehicular movements, we made the decision at that point not to introduce a crosswalk. So pedestrians will need to cross either at, if you're south of this intersection at Valley Road or north at Laurel. We put in a new crosswalk at Laurel so that you could cross Mount Lucas to get to the east side of the road. Otherwise, if you are maintaining travel on the west side of the road towards this intersection, you need to head towards 206 and cross Cherry Hill at the 206 light to then travel back into town. But there will not be an additional crosswalk across the new 5 lanes of roadway.
So if you're walking on Mount Lucas, how do you get across Cherry Hill?
So if you're walking along like the doctor's office and the bank, you would travel around the bank next to the right turn lane to the traffic signal, cross south to the corner of the PFAR's property, and then continue down and around. Sorry, my pointer isn't working, there's my pointer.
So would there be any crosswalks that you'd see on what's being shown here that aren't being shown, or they're just off the map?
There's an existing crosswalk here, which
Right.
we'll maintain.
Oh, you will maintain it?
Yes, we will
Okay.
maintain that.
Okay.
Sorry, that's not shown.
Right,
That
okay.
will be maintained. So
Okay.
anybody traveling in this area will come down here,
Got it.
cross this way,
Okay.
and back into town.
Got it.
There will not be anything in this area.
Right, okay. Did you have a question, Ms. Butler?
Yeah, so just, this isn't actually what I had in mind, but will there be a sidewalk then along the Witherspoon, or is it still Mount Lucas at that point? There is going to be a sidewalk,
There's sidewalk on both sides. I'm sorry, that does not show on the plan, but yes, there is sidewalk on both sides.
Okay. My question really had to do with what involvement or what role or conversations you may have had with the school in terms of Valley Road, because based on the Valley Road School, because based on what I read in the newspaper, it now looks as if they may be using that property for a school again. So what impact will that have on this plan, if any? And what consideration have we given it?
I think I can answer that only because I've had some conversations with the school district. They're still in the planning stages, and what they've done is we've kind of introduced them to the concept here. And because they have not, they're still at the planning stages. They know of the concept. We'll work with them to make whatever improvements would be necessary.
We can, Joe, to address that
Yeah.
also. The squad had a meeting last Thursday night at the Squad House. We had sent out 64 invitations to people that were within the 200 feet, and then we far exceeded the 200 feet that you usually do for zoning. The school board got one of those notices. So a member of the school board was at our neighborhood meeting at the Squad House on Thursday night. So they saw our presentation. They caught a glimpse of part of this presentation because Deanna had sent it to us. So they're fully aware. They had the invitation. They had, so the board knows about this. So they have not expressed any concerns to us so far. We don't anticipate any, actually.
But I have a feeling that their situation keeps changing, and that even it's changed in the last few weeks about their plans for that property.
And it may continue to change over the next couple of years. They currently house their school buses there, so
Right.
their travel demands currently were incorporated into the traffic studies that were completed for the project. And then it's just a matter of if they create new traffic, then, you know, they'll have to look to do their own traffic study and see what the impacts are in this area.
Thanks.
Sure. First, congratulations to PFARS on meeting your fundraising goals and feeling ready with your fundraising to begin construction. I have some experience in the hardscrabble world of greater good fundraising, and that's a significant goal, so I congratulate you. Deanna, you mentioned DOT's hesitancy to come up with, to put 2 lights within half a mile or less than half a mile. You cited examples where they've approved such lights. Do any of those involve emergency, fire or rescue or ambulance squads, to your knowledge? I'm just wondering if that would strengthen our case to be able to say, in this community, you approved something for a fire or a rescue.
I don't know, but the traffic engineer that we have hired is the one that's been responsible for getting some of those traffic signals approved by DOT. So I can definitely delve into his experience on that, and we can use that as necessary to our advantage.
And my other question, I know this isn't a site plan and there's a whole process that'll go through zoning and planning, but on the slide that's marked municipal fuel station, there appears to be some, like a parking area. Is that envisioned to be the parking for the entire building, and is that sufficient parking for the squads and visitor use? I know that the squad is using the shopping center parking lot with, I'm sure, with permission from the owner of the shopping center, so.
Yeah, one of the things staff and I know the squad are still working in terms of the actual parking arrangements, because we've just met with our design. Of course, we'll have to sit down and kind of reconfigure that and do some estimates of what the parking would look like. So at this point, we're not sure. We're still at the top.
Yeah, but we can tell you right now, we're more than satisfied with the amount of parking. We've been keeping track of, we have a certain number of paid staff that are on duty every day. We have a certain number of volunteer staff that are on duty every day. So, we pretty much know day to day how many people are going to park there, and we know what our high points are, which is when we have EMT classes, which for the most part are evenings and Saturdays. So, the parking, as shown, appears to work for us, and if not, we know in the non-pool season, we'll just come park over here, but we don't anticipate that we need to, I don't think we're going to need to do that very much at all.
Thank you.
Yep.
Just to pick up on what Mark said at the beginning, though, that the municipality has been using that space to park our vehicles, and do we have a plan for where those vehicles are going to go?
At least some on a temporary basis, we will find additional parking in terms of, one, using the Franklin lot when that's available for staff, particularly during the peak times in the summer when the pool's.
Yeah, that's a bit of a concern because that's not going to be available in perpetuity. So I think before we sign off on all of this, we should just make sure there's a long-term plan for where we can park the trucks. I don't know.
I can always rent my backyard.
Yeah.
For a small fee to the town.
Lance's driveway. How many can you fit in there?
On a good day, we could push 8.
The school district has been a good partner this year. While we were doing the cleanup work on the site, they allocated spaces over by the athletic fields for us, and that's happened in the past as well. So I think we can restart that conversation.
Right, I just am concerned if that might not be available either. And
Right.
so we just want to, before we build up everything, just make sure we're not the last one in the musical chairs with all the vehicles that need a spot.
Feels like it's already too late.
Ms. Butler?
The lights between Valley and Terhune, are those the two that we're talking about, or Cherry Hill? But how far away is the light at Mountain Avenue from the Valley Road? Because that also feels like it could be less than a half a mile. I've mentioned it before, and so, but if there's a different way to handle that, and Community Park could get back part of that turnaround, and if there were a left turn lane, there really aren't very many cars that ever turn left, so it'd be nice to have.
The vision study shows a roundabout.
Maybe with the new administration,
roundabout?
they'll be willing to bring back it's actually a beautiful report.
Well, I'm sure Mountain
Traffic
Lakes,
circle.
I'm sure Mountain Lakes won't mind. Yeah, okay.
All right. Are there any other questions or comments from Deanna? I want to thank Deanna and Mark for all working together on this plan. I know it's many years in the making. And I also want to extend all of our thanks to the volunteers at Princeton First Aid and Rescue Squad. You guys do a really amazing job for our community, and we appreciate everything you do to keep us all safe and healthy on the way to the hospital. So thank you. You guys deserve better facilities than you have now.
Thank you.
Thanks. All right, we're going to move on to reports. Mr. Stentz, you haven't even gotten up and you're clearing the room. So I'd like to welcome Ben Stentz, Director of Recreation, who is going to give council a brief report on the financial aid program that the Rec Department has been running for several decades. So it's not new, but it's something that's come up, and I thought it was important for council to have a better understanding of the program and also the community.
Thank you, Mayor Lempert. Thanks for the opportunity to come tonight and summarize our financial aid program. At the beginning of the summer, or even late spring, Councilwoman Butler suggested that I provide a summary of the program to the governing body, and it's something that hasn't happened in a number of years. But at that time I said to her, you know, we really need to wait till post-summer when the dust settles and all the data can be collected and organized and presented in a way that makes some sense to everybody. So once we got through the, for the most part, the end of that program, which is like mid-August, we started to work to put together some stuff to present to you, a lot of which was in your agenda packet. So. And yes, Councilman Quinn, I did grow up in Princeton. You're right. Jefferson Road crew. So the financial aid program has been in existence for almost 50 years through the Recreation Department. And the program is critical to the operation because it ensures that we're meeting, and I'm paraphrasing a little bit here on the departmental mission, it ensures that we're meeting our goals to enhance the quality of life for our residents, to encourage participation, and through that to strengthen the foundation of the community. So the financial aid program is the foundation of our commitment to inclusion and our commitment to remain welcoming, and it ensures that our programs, our facilities, our events, and everything that we do remain available to everybody, no matter what your financial situation is, no matter what neighborhood you hail from, no matter what language you speak, or where you're from. Frankly, we don't care. We want people in our programs, we want people using our facilities, and we will do anything within our means to make that happen for everybody. So I'm proud of the work that my department has done with the support of the Recreation Commission. And there's a couple things that I'm particularly proud of, some highlights that I'd like to throw at you that you've seen already in writing. Since 2011, the number of families that have received financial assistance directly from the Recreation Department's program has grown 74%. So we can talk about this and slice it up however we want, but I'm about the proof being in the pudding. And so in that time, and frankly that lines up with the time when I got promoted into my position, we made a commitment to really step up our outreach and make sure that we're reaching people. And that comes in a lot of forms. But 74% don't lie. Excuse that language, Mr. Liverman. The other thing I want to highlight is that we've always had existing partnerships with a lot of different communities and agencies around town, things like the COCO Fund out of Johnson Park School, the Joe Fund at Little Brook, the more recently formed Princeton Children's Fund, which has been wonderful, Send Hunger Packing, many agencies which I detailed in the report. But the number of students that we've had come to us for summer camp programs through those partnerships has nearly tripled since 2011. So we're getting more and more people who are connecting with us, who've expressed a need for assistance in one way or the other, and we're happy to be able to help those folks. Another stat that really tells a story is of the families that have requested assistance for us, on average, they're paying about 25% of the real number of what those programs cost. So on average, if they've requested $1,000 worth of programming or memberships or whatever it may be, on average that family is paying $250 of that. Now, many of the requests are not as high as $1,000. They may be a request for $300 of programming, $100 of programming. It really just depends from family to family. But so this year we reached 115 families through our direct program, which totaled 387 people. And then through our partnerships with many organizations in town, particularly in the schools, there's another 138 students that received a subsidy through a partnership to come to one of our summer camps. And as a connecting piece to that, through again, these partnerships, and this year we connected with Send Hunger Packing Princeton, we've really been able to step up our summer lunch program, which we started in 2010. In 2011, we were doing about 10 lunches a week, and this year it was 10 lunches a day. This year it was 125 lunches a day. And so those are students, campers, young people that, for one reason or another, need that kind of help. And we're happy that we've been able to help them through our connections in the community and partnering with a lot of other great agencies, and through the extreme flexibility of our existing pool concessionaire, R&K's Poolside Cafe. They've gone out of their way to provide those lunches, and it's really it's not glamorous what they have to do to provide 125 bag lunches by noon every day, but they've really been flexible and willing to do whatever it takes to make that program successful, in particular keeping the cost of the lunches very low. One of the things that has become, people know this if they deal with our department, we have a lot of bilingual staff, particularly seasonal staff, and we continue to attract people like that to our seasonal employment program, and that only makes it easier and maybe a little less intimidating for a new family if they're a Spanish-speaking family, the parents who don't know us, to come in and to be able to speak to someone in Spanish. We've got many people who speak Spanish. The old executive director even takes a swing at it every once in a while because he's married to an immigrant family. And they speak Spanish all the time. And so he takes a swing at it every once in a while too. More than anything, I just want to point out that the Recreation Commission believes that this, again, is the foundation piece, is the most important pillar to what we do. Without this, what would we look like? You know, who would we be attracting? Would we have a diverse group? Would every little kid, no matter what their situation is, no matter how much money mom or dad has, would they be able to do the same thing that the rich kid gets to do? And without this program and without all these wonderful partners, the answer is no. And so I'm really proud of what we've been doing. It's working right now very well. When in doubt, we we lean further towards helping the family than collecting more money. That's the MO. If people come in and say, you've offered me X and I can't meet X, we sit down and we have an honest conversation and we adjust that. We make it work for people. And if you know of a family that requested assistance from us and didn't get it, tell me. So with that in mind, I want you to know that the Commission continues to look at this program, this piece of the operation, as well as every single thing that we do on an ongoing basis, because we realize there's always room to find a better way, adjust something, tweak something, bring in a new partner. This evaluation of what we do and how we do it, it never ends. It's no different than the governing body. You're constantly looking at your operation to figure out what's working well, what's not working, how you can adjust it. And that's no different than what the Commission does in regards to the financial aid program, as well as every other program that we roll out. And we're really proud of it. And the last thing I'd like to say, and I'll be happy to answer any questions that anybody has, is I hope that everyone understands that what you see us doing, whether it's basketball, squash, swimming, aquathon, senior fitness classes, whatever you see, those things are part of what we say the vehicle is. The recreation's a vehicle. It's a vehicle to wellness, and it's a vehicle for us to get out into the community and to promote participation and to be welcoming, to encourage new relationships, to build trust with people, to provide opportunities, and to instill confidence in our young people. And that's what we're doing out in the streets. And we're proud of that. And me and my staff, I think Evan may be back there, he lives in the community. We walk up and down these streets with pride, and people shake our hands and give us hugs because they feel that love. And that love's not going away as long as this guy's here, and certainly as long as Mr. Moorhead's here. We're going to keep on spreading love into the community through recreation and always look for a way to continue to make it better.
Thank you. Are there any questions or comments?
Yeah, I just want to personally thank the Recreation Department and all the partners that participate in funding. And as Councilman Butler said earlier, if there's anyone out there that wants to fund more, your hands are open, your pockets are open. The rec can use funding to help out. I think it's great when you can do that. I'm big on having an inclusive events, inclusive neighborhoods, and just involve everyone. And the rec has been doing this for years. They're doing a great job. There's many kids that wouldn't have any summer, as I would call it, any decent summer if it wasn't for the rec and their support. So I just wanted to say I take my hat off to the rec and the staff, and thank you.
You're a product of it, Lance. So am I.
Thank you, Ben. Yeah, this is great. This is really helpful. This actually came up at the Human Services Commission earlier this summer, and we have the benefit of having on the Human Services Commission now Veronica Olivares, right? Who had been on the rec department and who had been on the rec commission, and was able to. And it's great. We have several members of the Human Services Commission in the audience now, and a former member in spirit, another member in spirit of the Human Services Commission here in the audience. So this is something that's of great interest to the Human Services Commission. And Elisa was able to report that she has a terrific relationship with you and can help connect. And I was embarrassed that I didn't know yet until to hear you tonight. It's really exciting to hear about the Send Hugger Packing connection, and to hear that now that you're able. So how do you do that? I mean, does Send Hugger Packing tell you who are their kids who are in the camp, or how do you match that?
That's really the part that's in the
sauce?
weeds. Yeah, that's the secret sauce. This year, our connection with Send Hugger Packing really came through our connection with the Princeton Children's Fund. And through them, they got a commitment from Send Hugger Packing, Ross, who's sitting here tonight, and that was how we connected. And so many of the students that come to us through our partnerships with these school groups have been vetted on that end as eligible for free or reduced lunch. And so kind of this pre-vetting process is really helpful to us, because I don't have the time or resource to necessarily vet families in that official way that the school system or university or
That
private
information's
school might do
confidential,
it.
and they may not want to share that information. Right.
So now we do collect information from people that apply directly to us, and that information is also confidential. But as I said before, Heather, when in doubt, if there's a kid who shows up and he doesn't have lunch or isn't bringing lunch, and we're not sure about his finances, we just give him lunch. I mean, at the end of the day, that's what happens.
So it's great. So everybody remember this. Later on, I'm going to be making a pitch about the SHUP fundraiser in a couple of weeks. So it's great to see this. But that just reminds me, I wonder, with Jeff here, if maybe there's a synergy with the WIC program to think about encouraging, the families in the WIC, in the Women, Infant, and Children program, since that's another income qualified program, and encouraging people in the WIC program to apply to the pool and the summer programs and stuff. So Jeff, maybe that's something like we can ask. I don't know if that's happened before. We can ask you and Elisa to coordinate.
We're all about it. Send them.
It's a good point, Heather. I think actually we have a clinic this Friday, so we'll touch base with their director and talk to them about it.
So thank you. Ms. Bella?
Well, I was just going to ask Ben if he could, we have been so fortunate with Ray and Kathy Van Arsdale running that concession stand, and what they've done personally to get those lunches out at an affordable cost. I mean, driving, going to Costco themselves to do the shopping rather than have it delivered so they can cut down a few cents here and there. It's really, it's been remarkable. And that contract goes back out for bid this year, and we're afraid for a lot of reasons that they may not bid on the contract again. So that would be a terrible loss, because they've given a lot personally and professionally to the program.
Agreed. And not to make a joke, but they also grew up in Princeton, and that is part of it. There's a personal element to this for a lot of people, and Ray and Kathy are no different.
Great. All right. Yep, Mr. Quinn.
Just like to add to the chorus of congratulations and, a 74% increase. I knew about the commitment because Councilwoman Butler does a great job of reporting back to council about all things rec, but to see numbers attached to that commitment, it's very impressive. And you didn't mention that I highlighted on the bottom the number of families requesting financial assistance that did not receive assistance is 0, which I think is the most impressive number of all. So keep up the good work.
Well, thanks. And let me also say that other agencies, other municipal agencies, everybody knows how to get in touch with me, but just in case you don't, our office is next door in between this building and the pool, 921-9480. I have a wonderful working relationship with Elisa. I have a wonderful working relationship with Gary de Blasio, whose Corner House is a big supporter of the program. Jeff, obviously, and we want to keep those communication lines open and share ideas. And if there's ways to improve this, we want to talk about it. We don't want to make knee-jerk reactions, but if there's ways to enhance it or improve it, then we'll talk about it. And I know I speak for the Recreation Commission that they're open to that, because they're always open to that stuff, particularly when it comes to making sure that we're reaching as many families as we can. So we don't vow that we have this figured out 100% now and forever. We're open to continue to look at it into the future for sure.
Great. Thank you, Ben. Thanks for coming in.
Oh, thanks for inviting me. Hi, Deanna. My partner right there, if you guys didn't know.
All right. And we'll continue with reports. Start with Ms. Howard.
Sure. Hi. Thank you. Several, but I'll start with Send Hunger Packing, since we've just highlighted a very nice collaboration with the Rec Department on the summer lunches. The main fundraising event of the year for Send Hunger Packing is coming up on September 24th. That's the Sunday afternoon in Heinz Plaza, and we have the great benefit of following the library. The tent will be up, and so it's September 24th, 1:30 to 3:30, and it's salsa and salsa. So there'll be salsa dancing and salsa tasting. and it's the main event, so it supports a really valuable program. So I hope people can join us. You can just Google Send Hunger Packing Princeton. Two other updates. The Animal Control Advisory Committee has been talking, and we're planning for the next phase of our deer management program, and that starts every year with reflecting on the past year. And as I reported to you earlier this year, there was concern that the program was not as effective this year because of the warm weather, which made it harder to bait. And so the cull was less effective, and of course as a reminder, it's important to maintain the program because it's been a public safety and a public health issue. Years ago, before the program, we had significant car accidents caused by the deer overpopulation. So we've been brainstorming about ways, especially working with the bow hunters, who've been a good partner, about ways to make the program more effective this year. And perhaps, I'm going to look over at Jeff and Trishka, perhaps at the next meeting, we'll have an updated, what is it, Trishka, proposal or agreement with the bow hunters? Do you want to fill in,
Yeah, we've been talking to John Zampini, who is the person who heads the group that we began using last year for the first time, and he's come to me and to Jeff with some requests and recommended adjustments that he hopes will make their efforts much more effective. And his goal is to try to really increase the number of deer that the bow hunters are taking, so that the town would still need to use white buffalo, but the more the bow hunters can take, then the more targeted white buffalo can be. And so the hope is that by making adjustments to that program, we can increase white buffalo's efficacy, the bow hunters' efficacy, and really try to stay on top of the deer population in Princeton. I think we also have to say prayers for, I hate to say it, for a harsh winter. We'll suffer, but it'll make our deer management efforts
Mother
much
Nature
more
has not
effective.
been cooperating, yeah. So,
but specifically to your question, Councilwoman, I think the goal is at your next meeting to have on the agenda for approval the bow hunting portion of the program, because by then I think we'll have finalized the details with John Zampini, and we'll be ready to bring something to you for approval. And then probably at your first meeting in October, we should have a proposal from White Buffalo and that whole package ready to go.
So to be continued, but just wanted to update you that we're already starting to think. It seems like you're always planning, and so, and then the questions on that, or Mayor, you
Well,
concerned?
I looked concerned about increasing the bow hunters piece of it, because that can have, I think, the biggest impact on the public and access to.
It can. We're going to
the
want to talk
trails.
about that. It may mean additional hours in which the bow hunters are out there, but we feel like what we will propose will be having it done early or late in the day, and being done in the safe way it's always done, where it's done from a blind from a higher position. And I think that we're working through those issues, and that's what we'll talk about at the next meeting.
If I can just add to that, I think one of the things that's interesting about John Zampini's group is that it's actually very small, and there may even at times be fewer hunters out there than there were when we were using UBNJ, United Bow Hunters of New Jersey. So it's not so much that we're talking about expanding the bow hunting program as making sure that they have the ability to function in the most efficient way possible. And unlike the United Bow Hunters of New Jersey, this group is really committed to managing and reducing the deer population. If I said something that
That's good
I
to
don't want
hear.
to be misleading
Right.
by saying that we're expanding the bow hunting program. That's not what we're suggesting. It's more expanding the number of deer that the bow hunters are taking.
Okay, that's good
More
to hear.
effective. Yeah. And then the final update is just that this Friday starts our Welcoming America Week, which is our annual celebration of what makes Princeton so special, the diversity and our recognition that having such a diverse community makes us such a wonderful place to live and work. And it comes at an important time, obviously, when the messages at the federal level are so horrific, I guess I can say from up here. And so, Mayor, I want to thank you for your statement this last week in opposition to the President and Attorney General announcing withdrawing the DACA program. and that has sent shockwaves across the country, and many of us felt a very cruel decision. And so we had been planning all along a week of activities to celebrate our immigrants in our community, but I think it just becomes even more important for us to reiterate the values that bind us here in town. So there's a list of events on the website. If you go to the Human Services Commission, we're partnering with the library, with the Garden Theater. There's films and discussions. There's, I think, one thing that's going to be really neat. There's a naturalization ceremony that you're going to be presiding at. So it's really an opportunity to celebrate the contributions of immigrants at a time when they're under attack. And we do continue we've been making materials available to people who might be affected by the president's decision, and of course, continue to think about ways to support people in the community. But this is a positive. September 15th through the 24th is an opportunity for us to remind everyone about our values. Thank you.
I'd like to report on the solar array on River Road. There's a lot of work going on now on testing the facility. The construction has pretty well been completed, and sometime within the next 2 weeks, the system will be activated and will begin to feed power to our customer, the Regional Sewage Processing Authority. We're looking forward to a dedication of the system probably in October, because we want the contractor to clean up the site before we have the dedication, so that we're not walking around in mud up to our ankles. And we had an excellent meeting with the library a few days ago to talk about displaying the operating parameters of the solar plant on the large screen TV at the entrance to the library, and the library is willing to cooperate with us on that. And we're now looking at whether or not we can adapt the large screen displays we have in this building, and perhaps even install some in Monument Hall that would also display some of the operating parameters of the solar plant.
Thank you. Ms. Butler?
Is somebody planning on talking about our recent financing? Is that on anybody's, Mark, were you planning on talking about it? I have the notes in front of me if you want me to report on it, or Bernie.
The bond sale.
The bond sale? You are going to report on it? Okay. Then I don't have any report.
Mr. Quinn?
Mayor, were you going to talk about the Bloomberg Mayor's
go ahead.
Challenge?
Talk about it.
We will be meeting this week with the facilitator to discuss our proposal for the Bloomberg Mayor's Challenge, and we're looking to tackle the problem of the shrinking middle class in Princeton, and we're bringing a lot of people to the table for the visioning statement ahead of writing our proposal, and I'd welcome the mayor to fill in anything that I'm missing here, any particulars.
Well, I guess, so the Bloomberg Foundation is providing facilitators to select number of towns that have applied. So I think, one, it's great we got a facilitator. The challenge was that there was a very quick turnaround between getting the facilitator and having the session. So we're not bound to use the topic at our workshop for the ultimate application, but in thinking about what was one of the biggest challenges facing the town, I feel like all of us have been talking about affordability, what's happening to the middle class, what we can do. So I'm looking forward to this session. It's limited to about a dozen people. There's going to be some people from the municipal side, some people we've reached out to in the community, and we'll continue to keep everybody up to date. And I think just the part of the reason why Bloomberg's providing these facilitators is it's supposed to help with setting up a structure that we can potentially use for other challenges that we face in the future if it's something that is a productive style of problem solving. But yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Did you have any other?
No.
Okay. I had a couple more reports too. The Economic Development Group continues to meet. We had a meeting with some of the university folks last week, and we're working on putting together the at least progress report, or because the working group has a sunset of the end of the year, because Councilwoman Butler and Councilman Miller make up 2/3 of the elected officials on the group. So we're hoping to come forward to council with some recommendations, hopefully next month in October, if we stay on schedule. And again, it's another really important issue. I don't know if we're going to have all the answers at that point, but we certainly talked to quite a few people and can suggest some directions from what we've heard so far. And then the final report is on the website. And I don't know, Jeff or Mark, were you going to report on the website?
Yeah, sure. I'll take it. Thank you, Mayor. So just an update on the website. We have successfully coordinated and scheduled pretty much every single department in the municipality to meet with the designers with Seamless Gov in something they call office hours, which gives the designers an opportunity to meet and get to know each manager, staff, and the department a little bit more, which helps in the transition of the data, the migration of the data over to the new site. Additionally, departments completed a questionnaire which gives a little bit more insight into each specific department, and the website working group members were able to complete a design questionnaire which gives the designers a little bit more insight in terms of what we've been looking for and what we've been discussing within the website working group. So we're successfully going to have this meeting September 26th and 27th. They were originally only going to come for one day, but we assured them that we would need two, just to make sure that they had time to meet with everybody individually. And it's a pretty full slate. On the 26th, they'll be meeting with the website working group for a few hours, and then they'll break out into the office hours with each specific department. And we're optimistic about the outcome of this, and we're hopeful to reconvene early October to see some of the draft products from Seamless Gov.
And I would say in the meantime, every council member has a page, and this is a time to take a look at that and see if that's the information. I think collectively we'd all, that there should be some standard format and type of information that's consistent across pages, but to take a look at that and see if that's the information that should be up on council people's pages, or if there's other documents that would be helpful to have up there. All right, and with that, we can move on to staff reports. Ms. Stockton?
Thank you. I'll continue the theme of New Jersey Department of Transportation in my report. But first, I've been remiss in introducing one of my colleagues. I've got Jeff Locks in the audience. He's our construction engineer. He's almost a year with the engineering department, and his first appearance at the council meeting. He's been instrumental in helping with the PFARS site layout, with the fuel station and the road plan. So I just wanted to introduce him to everybody. But with New Jersey Department of Transportation, I was informed late last week that there is a new emergency on 206 that has cropped up in a new location. This is near 707 State Road. They have a culvert that crosses the road. You may have noticed it. There's a lot of white paint on the road where they've stationed it. They were doing some investigative work. They have a culvert from 1915 that requires an emergency repair. They're looking to bring in steel plates, which measure 16 feet by 4 feet by 2.5 inches, 7,000 pounds each, and put them in place over the culvert to carry the traffic load until a permanent fix can be designed and permitted. The plates are in order. They're looking at having them by the 22nd. So they would like to come in the week of September 25th to do this emergency repair. They've presented us with two scenarios. I have talked with Police Traffic Safety Bureau, and we have talked through one of the options is to fully close the road for 2 days in order to accommodate this. The other option is to do nighttime closures for 4 days. Police and I both agree that we should opt with the nighttime only closures for 4 days, 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. work hours. And so that is what I have sent back to DOT. We're looking at detours. In the past, our detour has been Ewing Street to Mount Lucas to Herrontown back again when we have something that happens in that stretch of 206. So that's what we're sending back out to them. As soon as I have more information, I will make sure to distribute it to council, to the website, social media, and work with police on that.
Is that weather dependent, or can they work even if it's raining out?
I think it's fairly weather independent. They do have to take off the top surface of pavement, because what they'll do is they'll lay these steel plates in and then pave over the top of them to be able to anchor them in. So I think as long as we don't have high winds, because there is the crane, that would be the only issue. And then the only other update is that the mayor and I will be speaking at the Merchants Association next week. They have a meeting on Tuesday morning, so we'll be attending that to give an update on various activities of the municipality. I'm going to be touching on parking, some of our loading zone ordinance work, and any other topics that they might have interest in. That's it for me.
Great, thank you. Mr. Schild?
Thank you, Mayor. I want to report on last week.
Before you start,
There's a lot of heavy truck traffic on 206, and I'm wondering if we might not ask DOT to put out an advisory to the trucks to avoid that section of 206 while the work is going on. Otherwise, the trucks are going to be going through residential neighborhoods. So I think it'd be good to get DOT to get something out to the truckers to stay off of there, if they can.
I will definitely mention that to them.
And another question on that. Are we noticing the neighbors, or relying on the whoever's doing the work to notice the neighbors that there'll be nighttime work?
I don't know that we've ever noticed we haven't noticed in the past, but it's been typically like an emergent condition that we aren't aware of. I will ask them to put up advance warning signs on the detour route so people can be aware of it.
And we'll make sure it's out on social media and that, everyone's informed. Last week, we had our bond and band sales. On the 6th, we sold $24 million in bonds. We received an interest rate of 2.11%. We also sold $1.7 million in bands, which are our temporary notes. We received a 1.24% interest rate, which are great interest rate. Our AAA.
Can you speak right into the mic, because it's hard to hear?
Our AAA rating has been reconfirmed for the municipality, and again, because of all the great work we've done in our finances, we've received tremendously low interest rates on selling our debt for the last couple of years, and this is shows us again how well having that AAA rating does for us in terms of saving money.
That was great news, and congratulations to Sandy Webb, too, in the Finance Department. I know she was even surprised at the rate, so it was much lower than we were expecting, which is always good news. Are there any other staff reports? Nope, okay. So we'll move on then to resolutions, and the first resolution is 17-279, resolution authorizing the award of a construction contract to Topline Construction Corporation of Somerville, New Jersey for improvements to Walnut Lane in an amount not to exceed $1,490,390.57. I don't know what the 57 cents is for. Moved by Mr. Quinn. Is there a second? Seconded by Mr. Liverman. Any questions or? Mr. Miller?
Deanna, can you tell me how long a stretch of road this is that we're doing for roughly $1.5 million?
This piece of Walnut Lane extends from Valley Road to Hamilton Avenue. Approximately 2,500 feet, about 2,500 feet.
So about a half mile.
Yes.
So if I wanted to carry a number around in my head about the cost of road construction these days, it's about $3 million a mile?
Let me get that down into feet. Because I've had a number in my head in the past of how much it costs to do a road, and I've been surprised how much it changes. Right, so about $560 a foot, if you're looking at it that way. Yes. Numbers are higher at this time. We do have special storm sewer considerations as part of this project. You know, we are right at the high school detention basin, which we're all aware has had repeated flooding events that cause quite a bit of problem within the school. We've looked at our system and what needed to be done, and that work is incorporated into this project. We've also pulled in a piece of the bicycle plan, widening the side path along this stretch. So yes, there are significant costs, but it's not unreasonable, we feel.
Well, many times council is approached by residents who ask that we redo a street, their street. And I think it's good to keep that kind of number in mind when somebody says, I'd like you to redo my street, and it's 250 feet long, $5.60 a foot.
560.
$560 per foot is a good number to keep in mind, and for the residents to understand that it's expensive.
All right.
Just
Mr. Quinn?
a question on the time that the work is going to be done. Will they be avoiding the drop-off at the schools, at the high school and JW?
Right, so we set up the contract with some very strict parameters of not affecting traffic or parking within the school area on Walnut Lane. The contract extends until the end of August. So the contractor, if he can meet with our constraints, can start the work during the school year. Otherwise, he has windows during spring break or next summer to complete the project.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Resolution passes unanimously. Next is 17-280, resolution authorizing the award of a professional services agreement to Van Note Harvey Associates for professional engineering services related to the identification and reduction of extraneous flows in the sanitary sewer system for the Princeton Sewer Operating Committee, PSOC, for an amount not to exceed $125,000. Is there a motion to approve? Moved by Mr. Miller and seconded by Mr. Liverman. And Ms. Crumiller is not here. as our liaison to the SOC, but she always sings the praises of Mr. Huff for the work he's done in saving the municipality hundreds of thousands, if not more dollars, for being on top of the leakage into the sanitary sewer system, because we don't want to be treating rainwater. So anyway, I don't know if there's any other comments on this.
Well, actually, this is a topic that David Goldfarb, former borough council person, brought forward. He sits on the SOC. And I thought when David brought up this topic to us that this was something that we were going to be able to do ourselves. I was kind of shocked to see that we're going out to Van Note, and also that it's costing $125,000. I thought it was, I don't know if anybody is present who was involved in any of this, but
one of the issues that, as we reviewed this, to do both the monitoring and the analysis, just the staff would not be able to accomplish this in a timely manner in order to really make good decisions. And that's why we went to the consultant. That way we'll get the information and be able to take actions.
I'm really supportive of this, but this is just the cost of this and the fact that the staff can't do it. I mean, it's unfortunate Jenny's not here to address this, but, and I suppose there's nothing we can do about it now, but this seems like an awful lot for something I thought the staff was going to be able to do.
Well, it looked like from the resolution there was special monitoring equipment too, which I don't even know if the municipality.
It's both actually it's the flow meters themselves, part of this, and it's also the analysis of the information from the flow meters. So there's two components of it.
Right.
We would have to get the flow meters anyway, and the other component is the analysis, which, and again, that's why we're also having them help us with the analysis at the end.
All right. Are there any other questions or comments on this resolution? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, did you?
No, I'll go along with
Okay.
it. I think it's an important project. I just, as I said, I'm sort of surprised at, that we're not doing this ourselves.
Okay. So the resolution passes unanimously. Next is 17281, resolution authorizing the execution of a license agreement with Zagster Incorporated to extend a bike sharing program in Princeton by installing up to 3 new stations on public lands at Heinz Plaza, 2234 Chambers Street, and 400 Witherspoon Street. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Okay, moved by Mr. Quinn and seconded by Mr. Miller. Go ahead, Ms. Butler.
I was going to ask a question, but go ahead.
What, do you want to give some background on this, Ms. Stockton, and then?
Yeah, I can give you background on this. The new tenant at 255 Nassau Street is TD Bank, and through Tierney Communications, they have made an agreement with Zagster to install 4 bike share stations with 20 total bikes to be part of the Princeton Community Bike Share provided by Zagster. They've been working with us and Princeton University to identify locations, and so 3 of those locations could be potentially within public rights of way. As the mayor had mentioned, Heinz Plaza, 22 to 34 Chambers Street, and 400 Witherspoon Street. The other locations that are on private property that are being investigated include 255 Nassau Street, Garden Theater, and a location on the university property that runs between the Merwick-Stanworth housing development and John Street. So it fronts right near Mary Moss Playground. And the Zagster staff are currently investigating all of the locations, and this is just a piece of it to provide the use of our public lands if they so choose that as one of the preferred locations.
I think on the Heinz Plaza one, at least, it's a replacement, so Zagster would be a replacement. And I'm sorry, I should probably know this, but then are there still bays for residents to use who aren't using Zagster? Can they still park their bikes in those?
Yes, there are two sets of bike racks on the west side of Heinz Plaza closest to Witherspoon Street. So the idea is that one of those sets would be removed for the Zagster station. And then there still will be all of the bike racks that are located by Witherspoon Grill and the library in that little side corridor as you go out towards Sylvia Beach Way. So there will still be bike parking that's not Zagster in that area.
Are there any questions? I just want to thank TD Bank for sponsoring these bikes. It's really great. I hope we see more companies stepping forward too, because it's a great program. And it's, I mean, I know that the bikes at the Princeton Shopping Center always seem to be a different number there every time I walk by. So I think they're being well used. So it's nice to see this program expanding. Any other comments or questions? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Resolution passes unanimously. Next is 17282, resolution authorizing an emergency contract with Edward H. Cray Incorporated for traffic signal repair services through November 4th, 2017, at a not to exceed amount of $15,000. Is there a motion to approve? Moved by Mr. Miller and seconded by Mr. Liverman. This came about as a result of the county, Mercer County, deciding that they no longer wanted to provide the service to the municipality, so we're on our own. So is there, sorry, I'm really tired. Did somebody just move and second this already? Okay. All right, are there any other questions or comments?
I note that this only goes through November 4th, 2017. What happens after that date?
After that date, we will either have a contract awarded or we will have the ability to negotiate the cost of these services under local public contract law.
And this amount is much higher than you would expect. I'm assuming we're going to be paying for this.
We had reviewed previous year's billings from Mercer County. Jeff, again, assisted with that. And so this was what we felt was a reasonable average. I mean, it's not a typical occurrence. We have maintenance done to the signals as they're needed. We don't do any preventative work. So it's hopefully we will not be incurring that full $15,000 during this 3-month period.
Okay. Anybody else? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Resolution passes unanimously. Next comes 17283, resolution authorizing a contract for extraordinary unspecifiable services to technology management consulting for a geographic information system implementation plan in an amount not to exceed $19,000. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Quinn and seconded by Ms. Howard. Mr. DeShield, did you want to comment on this?
Following contract, the objective is to develop a needs assessment. Now we've gone through a number of interviews and discussions with department heads to identify some of the key areas. Right now we have a GIS system, GIS software in 2 different departments, engineering and in the public works department. They're 2 separate systems. They don't necessarily talk to each other. They've been developed on separate, by separate vendors. We're bringing a consultant in again to really correct that by coming up with a integrated GIS system with Connect, Public Works, Engineering, and some other departments who maybe want to use some of the GIS capabilities. They will come together and review our current GIS capabilities, do a needs assessment of what the needs would be for those departments, and help us develop an implementation plan.
Okay, terrific. Are there any other questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Resolution passes unanimously. Next, we come to the consent agenda, which contains items of a routine nature passed by single vote. Are there any items anybody would like removed from the consent agenda?
Well, I just wanted an explanation on, I think yes. Could you remove 4 and 5? I just need a little bit of an explanation, but if you want to pass the rest of them.
Okay. Is there a motion to approve the consent
Yes, I move
agenda?
that we adopt and en bloc all of the items on the consent agenda except for numbers 4 and 5.
Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Ms. Butler. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Consent agenda minus 4 and 5 has passed unanimously, and we'll go. Do you just want to go to 4 and 5 as a block? And is there a motion to approve?
Sure. Well,
Yeah. Let's get it on the table
Sure.
first.
Yes.
So it's been moved by Ms. Butler. Is there a second? Seconded by Ms. Howard. And would you like to ask your question now?
Well, I just wanted a little bit of an explanation about what this is about.
Sure. The engineering department, in reviewing the traffic regulations for Nassau Street, if you recall, maybe 6 months ago, we had a request to do a no stopping or standing zone down near the new post office and 7-Eleven. So at that time, when we started looking at what the traffic regulations on the state records included, we found that there were some discrepancies, some things that were missing. Signage didn't necessarily match what the traffic regulations included. So we asked the state and New Jersey Transit to review those regulations, and they sent back notification to us of minor changes, nothing substantial, to the bus stops, the taxi zone, the 30-minute parking, and I think a loading zone as well. So that's what you have before you, is just, it's more of a housekeeping resolution on our part to support what is actually in place out on Nassau Street.
Okay, so it doesn't change what we've got out there in any way?
No.
Okay.
Any other questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Those two resolutions pass unanimously. And is there a motion to adjourn?
No, I think we need to keep Jeff here a little bit longer since this is... Deanna has probably told him how long these meetings go on, if we're finished too early. Second.
Moved by Mr. Lieberman, seconded by Ms. Butler. All in favor?
Aye.